beaten daily by her mother, until a lone mountain man decided to take her away to... They said she was cursed, that the bruises on her arms were punishment from heaven. But the truth was darker. Those bruises came from her own mother's hands. Every day she learned to be silent, to hide the pain behind lowered eyes. Until one day, a stranger from the mountains came down to the village. A man who spoke little, but whose eyes saw everything. And when he saw her, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. The town of Red Hollow was small, built between endless stretches of forest and fog. The people there lived by gossip and superstition, feeding on one another's misery. And in the smallest house at the end of the muddy road lived Anna Hale and her mother Ruth. Ruth had once been beautiful, so people said, but time and bitterness had carved her face into something hard and mean. Her husband had died in a mine collapse when Anna was 5, and Ruth never forgave her daughter for surviving when he hadn't. She drank to forget, and when the bottle emptied, she turned her rage on Anna. Each night, Anna counted her breaths, prayed for silence. But silence rarely came. The sound of breaking glass, the hiss of her mother's voice, those were her lullabies. She was 16 when the first scar appeared on her cheek. The villagers saw. They always saw, but they pretended not to. When Anna fetched water, they looked away. When she limped to church, no one asked why. "It's her burden," they'd whisper. Her mother's had a hard life, so Anna carried her pain like a shadow, constant, invisible to those who didn't care to see. Then, one winter morning, everything began to change. The snow came early that year, heavy and unrelenting. The supply road from the mountains was blocked for weeks. When it finally opened, a stranger rode into Red Hollow on a grey horse. A man wrapped in a wool cloak, his beard rough, his eyes calm as stone. His name was Luke Arden. He came to trade furs and salt, but his presence stirred whispers. The children said he lived alone in the high peaks, where wolves howled and no one dared to follow. The adults said he'd lost someone long ago, maybe a wife, maybe a child. No one knew. He kept to himself until he saw Anna. She was at the market, her sleeves rolled up as she carried sacks of flour for the baker's wife. Her wrist bore a fresh bruise, and when Luke noticed it, something in him shifted. She met his eyes for only a second, but it was enough. He saw not weakness, but endurance. The next day, he returned to the market, this time with a wooden carving in his hand. A small sparrow, wings outstretched. He placed it on the counter where she worked. "For you," he said simply. She looked confused, hesitant. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because you look like you forgot how to fly." That night, Ruth found the carving and smashed it to pieces. "You think someone like him would care for a nothing girl like you?" she hissed. "You'll never leave this house alive." Anna didn't answer. She just gathered the broken pieces and hid them beneath her pillow. Days passed. Luke began to appear more often, sometimes buying things he didn't need, sometimes just watching from a distance. He noticed the way Anna flinched when someone raised a hand too fast, the way she winced when she lifted heavy baskets. Once, when her mother sent her to chop firewood behind the house, Luke quietly approached and offered to help. She froze, clutching the axe handle. "You don't need to be afraid of me," he said softly. "I'm not," she whispered, but her trembling hands betrayed her. He took the axe from her gently, split the wood in silence, and when he was done, he said only, "You don't belong here." Anna didn't understand what he meant until the night that nearly ended her life. Ruth came home drunk, angrier than usual. A man she'd been seeing had left her for someone else. She stormed into Anna's room, screaming about betrayal and curses. When Anna tried to leave, her mother struck her with a candlestick. Blood ran down her forehead. She fell, barely conscious. Ruth dragged her by the hair toward the door. "Get out, then," she screamed. "If the world wants you, it can have you." Anna stumbled into the snow barefoot, dazed, the cold biting into her skin. She walked until she collapsed by the frozen river. When she woke, she was wrapped in a fur blanket, her head resting near a fire. And there, sitting beside her, was Luke. "You're safe now," he said quietly. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her ribs. "Where am I?" "My cabin," he said. "You were half dead when I found you. You're not going back there." Tears welled in her eyes. "She's my mother." He looked away, his voice rough. "Then may God forgive her, because I can't." Outside, the wind howled across the peaks, but inside the small wooden cabin, warmth began to return to Anna's frozen heart. Days turned into weeks. The mountain became her refuge. Luke tended to her wounds with quiet care, never asking for thanks. He showed her how to start a fire, how to trap rabbits, how to listen for storms before they came. He didn't speak much, but when he did, his words carried the weight of someone who had seen too much and survived it. One evening, as the sun bled across the snow, Anna asked him, "Why did you help me?" He stared into the flames. "Because once someone helped me." He told her about his past, a wife who had died giving birth to their child, a child who hadn't survived the first winter. The pain had driven him into the wilderness, away from men and their cruelties. "But when I saw you," he said softly, "I remembered what it was to want to save something good." Anna didn't know what to say. Her whole life, people had looked at her and seen only weakness. Luke saw something else. As spring came, she grew stronger. Her laughter, something she hadn't known she still had, returned in small bursts. Luke built her a small garden near the cabin, and together they tended it. She learned to smile without fear, but peace is fragile. One afternoon, while fetching water, Anna saw riders coming up the trail. The sheriff of Red Hollow led them, and behind him, Ruth. Her face was twisted with fury. "You think you can steal my daughter?" she screamed when she saw Luke. "You'll hang for this!" Anna stepped forward, voice trembling. "He didn't steal me. You lost me." Ruth's hand flew up, but before she could strike, Luke caught her wrist mid-air. His voice was low, controlled. "You will not touch her again." The sheriff looked uneasy. He'd known Ruth's cruelty for years, but never acted. Now, seeing Anna's scars, his expression changed. "You're done, Ruth," he said. "You've done enough harm." She screamed curses as they dragged her away down the mountain path. When the sound of hooves faded, Anna fell to her knees, shaking. Luke knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. She sobbed, not just from fear, but from release. "She's gone," he whispered. "You're free." In the months that followed, Anna began to write letters to no one, stories of pain and healing. Luke built her a desk by the window. Sometimes he'd watch her, quiet pride in his eyes. And then, one summer evening as they sat watching the sunset, she took his hand. "You saved me," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, Anna, you saved yourself. I just showed you where the sky was." Years later, travelers passing through the mountain trails would hear rumors of a man and woman who lived high among the pines. They said she had once been broken and he had once been lost, but together they found peace. And when people asked who they were, the villagers would only whisper the story that began with pain and ended with freedom.